This is the January 30th, 2019 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Carla, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Here.
Fish. Hardesty.
Here.
Udaley.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here, the long shadow of this morning's session, unfortunately, is still over us a little bit. So for those of you who are just joining us this afternoon, there are two items that we need to quickly finish up from this morning's agenda before we get to the business at hand. Carla, my recollection on item 86, if you could reread that, please. I believe we're ready for any follow-up discussion for members of the council, and then we're ready for a vote.
Your Mayor, if I may, can I please read the warning?
I'm sorry?
If I may I please read the
Oh, yeah, sure,
instructions?
yeah, of course, the instructions that everybody will ignore later.
Thank you very
Go
much.
ahead.
Looks like a rowdy bunch.
Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak on any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you're in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless entering or exiting. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disrupt the meeting. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations, will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
Excellent, thank you. So with that, item 86, if you could just reread it, and then we'll get to the roll.
Okay, I showed one person who may not have gotten to testify, Tony Haddon.
Is Tony Haddon here? I don't see Mr. Haddon, very good.
Right. Item 86, authorize a
Let's vote on it,
competitive solicitation and contract with the highest scoring proposer for security officer services for an estimated $10 million over 5 years.
And just so those of us who are here this afternoon understand, this was from this morning. We had a presentation, we took testimony, and then we ran out of time. So here we are. Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Udaley.
No one wants to talk about what happened earlier?
We ran out of time, Commissioner.
Yes. I will just say that while I largely agree with the issues brought forward by community advocates, they lose all credibility by defending people whose behavior is abusive, intimidating, and threatening to us who sit on council, to our office staff, to security, and to city workers. I don't like how it feels coming into this building for the public anymore. I've devoted myself to making this place feel more welcoming and less intimidating. It's very disappointing that we've had to take these security measures. I cannot agree with people who are discounting the actual threat that we face. But more importantly, I do want to go on record as saying I want us to seek a new service provider. I would like for our current employees to be retained at their, with what wages and benefits equal or greater to what they currently receive. And I would like the city to explore the feasibility of making security officers City of Portland employees rather than contracted providers. So perhaps a shorter-term contract could be constructed to give us time to move in that direction if we decide it's a better thing to do. G4S has been accused of human rights violations, unlawful killing, excessive use of force, and security lapses in other countries. But their most frequent offenses are around labor, and that includes wage theft, labor relations violations, employment and workplace safety. So I'm afraid this might be another Wells Fargo situation where we can't find a provider that can give us the service that we need. I hope it's not, and I vote aye.
Wheeler.
I vote aye. I think it's very important that we RFP this. This is a normal part of our city process. This helps ensure accountability. It allows us to see and test what else is out in the market, who new players and entrants might be. It gives us the opportunity to look at the overall operation. Again, I'm sorry for the delay that was caused this morning. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item that we also carried over from this morning is the last item carried over, item number 87, please.
Authorize grievance settlement between ASME Local 189 and the City of Portland through its Portland Police Bureau regarding police desk clerks.
Mark, you just can't seem to get rid of us, can you? Good
Or the other way
afternoon.
around, that's, yes,
Or vice versa, very good.
that's right. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Mark Amberg with the City Attorney's Office. This ordinance presents a proposed settlement agreement with the AFSCME local union and the city. It's a fairly long-standing issue that's been out there, and basically the AFSCME filed a grievance over the use of sworn police officers to perform police desk clerk duties. Generally speaking, it's at the front desk of the different precincts, primarily the central precinct. And in essence, AFSCME said, wait a second, that's our work. It should be done by our represented employees and not by sworn police members who are down there because they're on some form of light duty or otherwise we're not out on the street to patrol. A settlement was reached whereby basically there was an agreement that that work, the police desk clerk work, belongs to AFSCME, and sworn police officers will only be used in very limited, defined circumstances. Essentially, if they're true police work, like taking a report or something like that, that a non-sworn employee can't do. And there is a financial component to this. The police AFSCME claimed that the police desk clerks, their represented members, lost overtime opportunities as a result of police officers doing the work, and therefore there was to compensate them for those lost overtime opportunities, there was an agreement that the 16 affected police desk clerk employees would each receive a flat sum payment of $500 each, which brings the total value of the settlement to $8,000. And that in essence is the settlement agreement that is being asked to be approved by council.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. So it says sworn police officers and non-represented employees. What about the public safety special, the PSS3s, the public safety specialists? They're not sworn police officers, but they are represented.
Yes, the PS3s or the public safety specialist position actually did not even exist when this settlement was negotiated, which it was last summer this was negotiated.
So if it turns out that these specialists are doing a lot of desk work, then there'll be another grievance.
I think that's fair to say. AFSCME would probably consider that to be their work, and I don't want to speak for our friends at AFSCME, but I believe that would be true. And I don't think there's as far as I know, there's no intent to put the PS3s, the public safety specialists, doing desk work.
I know that the mayor has stated as such, but I'm glad that there's also another backstop that if it does start that they're doing this kind of work, that AFSCME will certainly be aware of it.
Yeah, I would be disappointed if the PS3s were deployed in that capacity. That's not what the vision was at all.
Sure, and I haven't heard anything of any intention to do that, but I'm sure AFSCME would be more than happy to assert their rights if they felt their
I'm
employees were not
confident they
getting the
would,
work.
yes. Very good. Any further discussion? Any public testimony on this item, Carla?
I think they both left, Robert West and Jeff Black.
Okay, good. Please call the roll.
Fritz.
I'm glad to see this, and I agree that bargaining units ought to stay in their lane, and everybody else ought to respect those lanes. Aye.
Hardesty.
I share Commissioner Fritz's joy in making sure that ASME members are protected, especially since the Portland Police Bureau's been kind of in my neighborhood trying to steal members. So I think this is a good settlement and a good reminder that represented employees are in fact represented. Aye.
Udaley.
Yeah, I support this effort. I'd love to see the Bureau get staffed up on the admin side. It's not an effective use of officers' time. Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Settlements agreed to. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, so we're on to today's agenda, and only a couple of minutes behind. Item number 90.
Update from Portland Community College Future Connect program.
Colleagues, Portland Community College Future Connect is a scholarship and support program for students who identify as first-generation or low-income residents. By providing scholarship money, ongoing career guidance, and personalized advising, Future Connect eliminates barriers to college and builds pathways for their students' futures. The City of Portland is very proud to support the PCC Future Connect. Before we get started with the presentation, Commissioner Fritz, is there anything you'd like to add as a strong and longtime proponent of this program?
Just that this is one of my favorite presentations of the year, so I'll save my comments for later. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Fritz has set the bar very high for you, which is fantastic. Here to present the latest on Future Connect PCC Foundation is PCC Foundation Board President Susie Lashane. Is it Lashane?
Lausten.
I wasn't even close, but I did try. My
did a
heart was
great
in the
job.
right place. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for being
Mayor.
here.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Councilors. I am Susie Lausten, President of the PCC Foundation Board. And as President of the PCC Foundation, I want to reiterate our deep gratitude for the City Portland's commitment to Future Connect program at PCC. As you all know, the city was an inaugural partner with PCC Foundation in the creation of Future Connect, and your ongoing support helps PCC Foundation sustain this innovative and successful program. Future Connect provides a path forward to college degrees and living wage jobs for first-generation low-income students. Our unique scholarship program includes early engagement with students while they're still in high school and ongoing support as they transition to PCC. The program is administered through the PCC Foundation. We provide scholarships, but more importantly, Future Connect provides intense coaching to help students navigate significant barriers that may prevent them from achieving their academic and career goals. Kelly, our program manager, will speak to some of the supports and program improvements we are implementing. We know that these efforts are working because of the high retention and transition rates our students demonstrate, and some of that material, I think, has been provided to you. Your investment and vision continues to create regional and state impact. The PCC Foundation is proud to count the Future Connect program among its top fundraising priorities. And currently, we are in the midst of our first ever comprehensive campaign, and Future Connect is a campaign goal. During a time when we are seeing a growing divide between our haves and have-nots, Future Connect offers a path forward to greater prosperity for our students and their families. By changing these students' lives, you are changing many and strengthening the health of our community. In addition to the generous support from Portland and other cities and government agencies, the foundation has also secured more than $2.5 million from private individuals, corporations, and foundations who, like you, understand the life-changing power of education for both our most vulnerable citizens and our region's workforce. The Foundation's commitment to you is to continue and expand our efforts to find additional dollars that strategically leverage the investment you're making. And we stand with the Portland City leaders in your vision to create a strong and sustainable local economy. Working together, you are helping today's students become tomorrow's thriving members of this wonderful community. So for more information about the program's results and its impact in the city of Portland, I'd like to welcome Future Connect Program Manager Kelly Love.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your time today. I'm Kelly Love. And as you all know, Future Connect has been a partnership with the city since 2011. And this year, we're proud to have our first 2 students from that group finishing their doctoral degrees. Wow. We have a doctor of pharmacy and a doctor of physical therapy. And in sum, we've now served 2,318 students. As Susie mentioned, we serve students through a combination of a scholarship, a college success coach who provides personalized coaching and advising and is the student's main connection to PCC, cohorted classes to build skills for students to succeed in college, and a community of peers and staff to ensure that success. It is the community, connection, and wraparound support that makes this program different. Additionally, we know that students also need support to reach their goals after PCC. We have transfer coaching for these students who want to continue their education and earn a bachelor's degree. And we also have an internship program for students to get real-life work experience in their field of interest and be ready to enter the work world. Margarita Hernandez is our transfer and internship coach, and she will talk to you more about these programs in a few minutes. Also, we address the things outside of academics that can be a key to academic success. Every student has access to food in our offices on campus so they don't go to class hungry. Every student has access to bus tickets so they have a way to get to school. We've also found that short-term emergencies and crises, a sick parent who can't make rent, an unpaid bill, can cause students to drop out of school. And so to address this, we have a fund for emergencies. And this can pay for things like groceries, utility bills, and rent when crises come up. So these are our core services that we have: wraparound coaching, transfer coaching, internship support, and emergency support. But what we found as a program is that there are a greater number of students wanting support than can be served in the program, and we've worked to develop innovative programming to address this demand. So we start in our high schools, providing information about attending college, financial aid, scholarships, and visits to students' schools and classrooms. This works to both build students' knowledge, but really more importantly, their identity as someone who's college-bound. And last year, we reached over 5,000 students in their high schools and expect similar numbers this year. We've also found that students need support once they've applied to Future Connect. So this year, we've developed an innovative texting program that we're reaching out to all applicants. So we found that most high school students prefer to be texted rather than emailed. And so we send out texts with small steps each week to keep students on track towards attending college. And students get information about admissions, FAFSA, ORSA completion, scholarships, Oregon Promise, and other steps they need to take to successfully enroll in college. And then students can reply to these texts and get individualized support and connection with a person. Second, as we admit each year's group of students, all who cannot be admitted are waitlisted. Last year, we admitted 345 students, but we had over 1,000 who applied to the program. So now, every student on the wait list is offered the opportunity to attend workshops on campus that we call Summer Connect that include advising, financial aid support, resources, and community building. And students also receive text-based coaching and advising over the summer that continues into their first year of school. Now, I want to draw your attention to the back of the handout that you have in front of you. This has some of the demographics of the students in our program and our waitlisted students. And we're admitting students who have the highest need. We're not looking at the students with the highest academic indicators. We prioritize those with most challenges and the most barriers to attending and succeeding in school. And last year, the percentage of low-income students and students in foster care who were admitted to the program increased. We are also serving more waitlisted students and helping those students get admitted and started at PCC as well. And we're going to continue to work to broaden our supports to every student who is interested in our services. And we once again want to thank you all for your support of Future Connect. And now that I've given you an update, I'm going to pass this over to transfer coach Margarita Hernandez so she can share about the work that she's doing with students.
Great, thanks.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I can't.
Oh, sorry.
I have been working with the Future Connect program for the last 2 years as a transfer specialist and the internship coordinator. My connection with Portland Community College started in 2003 at the Rock Creek campus, taking classes to learn English. For a long time, my dream was to one day serve the college that opened the doors to me as a student. Like students in Future Connect, I was a first-generation low-income student, and I relied on the encouragement and support from our PCC faculty and staff. I later transferred to Portland State, where I earned a bachelor's degree, and in March, I will complete my master's degree in educational leadership. My own transition and experience navigating college has given me the inspiration to help our PCC students with dreams of achieving an education.
Excuse me one
It is-
second. Carla, could you put our speaker on? Thank you. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
It is truly an honor to be part of a team that supports students at every step in their academic journey. I feel so fortunate to know almost every student in our program and to be an ally to them in finding ways to follow a career path despite the challenges they face. I start working with our students at their last year at PCC. I reach out to all of them and ask if they want to transfer to a four-year school. I visit every PCC campus and meet with our students there. Every student has a unique interest and goals, and my job is to support those goals and help them to prevent any anxiety surrounding the transfer process. The advice and support I provide in my role as a transfer specialist is essential to our students' success, not only during the transfer process itself, but also to the persistence in their new institution. I have developed tools that guide our students' transitions. Together with the students, we navigate timelines, applications, admissions, and scholarships. We can proudly say that many of our students earn full rides at Oregon universities and others outside of the state. Our students have stories to tell and be proud of. I feel privileged to be trusted with our students' stories and to help them use those stories to find empowerment to move forward. In addition to the transfer work, I also coordinate the access to internships for our students. We have made many connections with nonprofit organizations and the cities that also support funding our program to help students become involved in their communities. Organizations like Bureau of Environmental Services in Portland, the City of Portland, the City of Hillsborough, Gear Up, Summer Works, Providence Hospital, and others welcome our students on paid internships each year, which often leads to more employment opportunities. Our students are active members in our community, and the access to these internships open doors for them, both academically and professionally. These internships also provide experiences that students can use when applying for the numerous scholarships we made available to them through our generous city partners and academic institutions. We are fortunate and grateful to all the colleges that welcome our Future Connect students each year, especially Portland State University, with their offer of partial scholarship up to 70 of our students. Lewis and Clark with 3 full rides, Linfield with 3 full rides in addition to the half of the cost of housing. Offering these scholarships each year helps our students make their dream possible. It also gives our students the opportunity to be debt-free by the time they finish a bachelor's degree. Thank you so much for all your support and for inviting me to share about our program. And now please let me introduce you to Richard Hartford, one of our Future Connect alumni, and now a student and a scholarship recipient at Lewis and Clark.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Hartford. I graduated from Grant High School in 2015, and boy, was I glad to be done with high school. I felt like I was lost in the crowd of students. I had struggled to keep up in all of my classes, but I knew if I didn't turn things around to get my diploma, so many doors would be closed off to me. And it would be very difficult to make a living. So in the beginning of my senior year, I talked with my counselor to see if it would still be possible for me to graduate. And she helped me register for night school classes and online classes to retake the classes I had failed. And by the end of my senior year, I was able to graduate with a 2.0 GPA. I come from a low-income, first-generation immigrant, single-parent household, and it just felt like the cards were stacked against me. I would have to settle for a low-class life, and I would probably be working just to make ends meet. But then my counselor told me about this incredible opportunity. She told me about this program at PCC called Future Connect. which was designed to help students just like me. I doubted that I would get accepted. I mean, I only had a 2.0 GPA, but I applied anyways and I got it. The amazing thing about Future Connect is that it not only helps financially to pay for the cost of attendance, but they also provide or designate coaches to help students throughout your entire time at PCC. My experience at PCC with Future Connect was completely different from my experience in high school. With every student being assigned a coach, they're available to help at any time, whether it's via text, call, in person in their office. It was amazing. If we didn't have food, they had snacks or meal tickets. If we were having issues at home, I would be able to talk to my coach, and they helped me work through issues so I could put my focus back onto school. At PCC, I was able to turn my 2.0 GPA from high school into a 3.5 GPA. I stopped worrying about what my grades were, and I started to explore my interests in school and learned that education is not about getting good grades, although those are nice too, but it's about furthering my knowledge. When the time came for me to start thinking about transferring from PCC, what seemed like a daunting process was easy with the help from Future Connect transfer specialist, Margarita Hernandez. She's a godsend. She truly cares about her students and helping them. She took the time to get to know me, my interests and goals, and then helped create a plan so I could take the next step forward. At my meetings with Margarita, we figured out what classes and prerequisites were required, and throughout the time, she would constantly check in with me to make sure I stayed on track. At the beginning of my final year at PCC, we started working on the college transfer application, and she helped every single step of the way. She was always ready and available to support me. Lewis and Clark was my first choice. However, Lewis and Clark is a private university and was way out of my budget. I was torn. I wanted to go to Lewis and Clark, but I didn't want to be over $150,000 in debt. But lo and behold, Margarita comes to my rescue. And she informs me that Future Connect and Lewis and Clark have partnered up to provide scholarships to 3 students, and it would cover all tuition and fees for all years of attendance to complete my bachelor's degree. I'll be honest, I doubted that I'd get that too, like I got into Future Connect, but Margarita talked me out of my doubts and helped me complete my application for the scholarship. On May 3rd last year, I got a notification saying an update was posted to my application status page, and I was so nervous to open it. But I did anyways, and I saw I was accepted, and I was super excited. And the first person I had to call was Margarita, because she's the one who helped make my dreams become a reality, and I'm beyond thankful to her. I started attending Lewis and Clark last fall, 2018, and I'm currently on my 2nd semester there. It was a bit of a transition from PCC to Lewis and Clark, as I had gotten used to all the support from my Future Connect family. But they provided the tools I needed to thrive at any school. Currently, I am majoring in mathematics and doing the pre-engineering program. I've always enjoyed and been deeply intrigued by mathematics and realized I should study what I'm interested in and not the path that maybe many others have gone on. And by completing the pre-engineering program at Lewis and Clark, that opens the door for me to become an intellectual property lawyer, which is my dream.
That's great.
I'm so grateful to be in a position where I can pursue my dreams, and it is all thanks to Future Connect. They have helped me so much. It is difficult to summarize, but they have helped with all aspects, with my success at PCC, my application process for Lewis and Clark, and they taught me what habits create for successful students, how to advocate for myself, and how to seek help when needed. I do miss everyone at Future Connect, but I am so excited to see what the future holds for me at Lewis and Clark and beyond, And I just want to say thank you to Future Connect and all the donors and founders for making my dreams possible.
We'll suspend the rules. Thank you. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, I obviously should have taken you up on your suggestions to make a speech beforehand, because I almost can't talk right now. So thank you for that. I'd like to ask you to add another metric to the statistics that you give us every year, and that is how many of your graduates become City of Portland employees. And I thought I had you when you said pre-engineering. I was going to offer you a job at the Water Bureau on the spot. And then you said intellectual property. My daughter's actually in law school in Irvine, California, and got a nice scholarship there. So again, don't be put off by the sticker price. There are lots of scholarships for people who are willing to work hard. And so I just wish you all the best in your success. And thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming to share with us.
Well, we always are looking for good IP attorneys, aren't we? The loss of one bureau may be the gain of another. We'll see.
Well, that
We'll
was
see.
initially the looking at how can, it was part of the start of the equity work at the City of Portland, is how can we establish a pipeline and, let's support students both in ninth grade and through high school, but then on into college. And so I'd really like to see it actually, as now that we've got some doctorates coming online.
Yes.
And now is the time for us really to let if you also could let your students know that the City of Portland is really eager to get their applications.
Yes.
Mayor.
Commissioner Daly.
This is always a uplifting presentation in what is not always an uplifting chamber. And I'm also always struck by how much I could have benefited from a program like this. And although things turned out okay for me, I did struggle with the fact that I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have a high school degree for a long time. And we need to create multiple avenues to success and prosperity. College isn't for everyone, but if it is for you, you should be able to go. And I'm really glad that you have had this opportunity.
Very good. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the report.
Second.
Well, we all have moved and seconded the reports. I'll give it to Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Fritz this time, respectively. Carla, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Thank you for taking the time to come in, for putting together. Thank you, Susie, for volunteering on the board. I always have to give honor to Mayor Sam Adams, who put this forward in the middle of the recession. I thought he was absolutely nuts. He was the mayor, and it was the one thing he asked for. And so it was, I think, at $360,000 at the time. And yet it was captured the imagination of the business community and of private donors, and I know the foundation does a lot of work to fundraise for it as well. Then we got the Oregon Opportunities, is that what it's called?
Oregon Promise.
Oregon Promise, right, which provides some of the tuition. It doesn't provide the kind of wraparound services that Future Connect offers. And so although I give the credit to Mayor Sam Adams, it was actually Kali Thorne-Ladd, who was on his staff, who had it was her brainchild. And now, lo and behold, she's an elected official on the board of PCC. So that's a nice full circle too. But it would be really great to get your graduates coming to work at the City of Portland.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
people sometimes say that we don't stay in our lane. Well, I'm really proud that we didn't stay in our lane on this one. And it really is our lane, because our whole community values this, that our students succeed. And it is so important for you to have the opportunity to have a good job and not just make ends meet. So thank you all for what you do. And thank you, Mayor, for continuing to fund this program and to be supportive of it. Aye.
I think Commissioner Fritz did a wonderful job of providing thanks and appreciation. Your story is awesome, and I just think about how many young people out there could say the same story, except they would stop before they got to Future Connect because they wouldn't have had access to it, right? And so take advantage of all the opportunities that it presents, And I certainly am grateful that there's a program out there like this that will help first-generation college students get over that hump. I don't know who said this, and they said it much better than I can, but it's not that we aren't all capable. It's just that we just don't all get opportunity to do so. So, aye.
You, Daly?
Well, I already said my piece, so I'll just vote aye.
Wheeler?
Well, I'm just warming up. I'm just warming. This is fantastic, and I obviously strongly support this, and I definitely want to give credit where credit is due. This has been in the works for a long time. You mentioned Commissioner Sam Adams. Commissioner Fritz is underselling her role in all of this. Of course, she's been staunchly supportive of this over the years. And Sam may have even had a partner back in the day in the Multnomah County Chair, some guy, I don't remember him, whoever he was. But the important thing here is, for me, as I listen to this story, it took 2 leaps of faith for you to achieve the level of success that you've currently achieved. First of all, you had to overcome sort of the belief that you had that the barriers you were facing might actually be formidable barriers. And you jumped over the barriers, and you had an advocate who helped you jump over the second barrier and see the possibility in Lewis and Clark. You didn't give up. And that speaks, I think, as much to your innate drive and sense of personal ambition as it does to the program overall. My challenge to the program is this: as we move forward in the years ahead, we can't leave it to happenstance. We can't leave it to just the chance that you have a student who's really, driven and highly motivated. We have to figure out how to find the kids who are maybe on the periphery, who don't see that opportunity or maybe don't have that opportunity to reach out to the right people, or maybe the right people don't reach out to them in the program. And I'm hearing so much about how instrumental you are as the outreach coordinator for this program. We have to figure out how to institutionalize this, right? How to make this seamless, how to make it accessible to everyone as part of the process. But in the meanwhile, this is just a fantastic partnership. And I know I'm proud to be a bit player in all of this. So thank you. I vote aye. The report is accepted, and we have a request for a photograph
Yes.
up front. We even have a professional photographer here.
So on Fridays in our program, we give out hoodies, one hoodie to a student at each campus with the Future Connect logo. We do it to build community and make students feel more connected. And so if you all would like, we have brought hoodies for you all today, as you are also part of the Future Connect
Great.
family.
Do you want us to wear it for
If you
the
would hold
photos?
them up, we would love to.
Okay, because it does
Yeah.
not
You
violate,
don't-
my only rule in photographs is I have a no silly hat rule.
We have no silly hats for you
Okay,
today,
great.
so we're all set.
All right, let's just go ahead and do it up
It
here.
might violate city dress code, but we'll suspend the rules.
Actually, it's color-coded to you, Commissioner.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, okay.
All right, everybody. 3, 2, 1, smile. Grab one more. 3, 2, 1, smile. How'd it turn out? Excellent. Thank you.
Always appreciate Check this out. Look at this. Think of the things I could do right now. So, believe it or not, the only thing I'm authorized to do at this particular moment, since our next item and our only remaining item is a time certain, we're going to take a 15-minute break so Commissioner Hardesty can eat her lunch. We are on recess. We'll be back at 3:30, time certain. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for those of you who've been here. Thank you for your patience. At this point, Carla will take up item number 91.
Proclaim February 2019 to be Black History Month.
I'd like to welcome everybody to Portland City Hall. And I'd like to start off our presentation today by introducing Irene Marion from Equity and Inclusion in the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us today here to celebrate Black History Month. My name is Irene Marion, and I work at the Portland Bureau of Transportation as the Equity and Inclusion Manager. And I'm here today representing the CAN Network, the City African American Network. We are an affinity group of the DEEP employees, so the diverse and empowered employees of Portland. And we represent the 820 current Black employees that work across the city. We appreciate having easy access to information about our demographics. I was actually on the OEHR website today where I was poking around and kind of learning a little bit more about us. So I want to walk you through the materials that we just distributed to you so that you can kind of follow us along on our journey today. So the City African American Network, again, we are an affinity group of staff. Our work is really to connect the Black employees across the city and to help empower them professionally so that they can not only be retained here as city employees, but really make it up through the ranks. So the first material that I want to point out to you is, again, from the OEHR website.
Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Office of Equity and Human Rights. Thank you, Commissioner. So there is an employee demographics dashboard, and what I've put before you is information about the Black employees across the city. It's interesting to kind of look at this information to see how the staff is scattered across the city, what types of positions we represent, how we are making our way through the ranks of the city, how many of us are veterans, how many of us are disabled, our age, and also the increases in Black employees across the city over time are on the back page. So I just want to flag that because we represent all these folks. We don't talk to them or see them every day, but we represent their interests, and we definitely encourage you through your work with your bureaus to be connected with them as well. So today we are here. This is one of the types of programs that we host. We actually host monthly meetups with Black employees across the city. We call that the Never Eat Alone meetup, where we meet monthly, mostly at the Housing Bureau, just to connect and talk about different things that we are dealing with as city employees, but also just to have social engagement as well. During Black History Month, we host usually a series of events. So last year, we had a really great series of events and appreciated all of your support. This year, we have 5 events that we are coordinating, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of today. And then in Juneteenth, you can also expect to see us back for hopefully another proclamation on Juneteenth and to have another series of events. So I'm here to introduce our Black History Month theme and then kick it over to a couple other CAN network members. So this year's Black History Month theme is set by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and their established theme this month is Black Migrations. What they're looking to do is really focus on the story of how Black people have migrated to America, how we migrate around the country, and for us here today, we want to share some stories about how we are migrating around the Portland region. So I'm excited because we have a panel of really cool youth that have come from different Black organizations and networks across the area. They're going to talk about their Black migration stories, and they're also going to pose a question to you. So we have a couple of those in our run of show packet for you here today, but they will present them as they share their Black migration story. And with that, I will kick it over to Kim McCarthy, who will introduce our first speaker.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor,
Good afternoon.
Commissioners. I'm Kim McCarty with the Portland Housing Bureau, and I'm really pleased to introduce our young leaders here today. They're going to talk about their migration stories. To start off, we have Taji Chisamet. Chazi is 17-year-old and a junior at DeSalle North Catholic High School. Taji's been active in civic engagement and leadership since middle school. Taji currently sits on the Multnomah Youth Commission. Over the past year, Taji has founded a nonprofit called Youth Educating Police that works with the Portland Police Bureau to sustain youth involvement in the training process and to have strong investment in building relationships between police and youth. Taji believes in uplifting and empowering all minority groups and does so in intersectional frameworks to guide his work. Thank you for coming, and let's hear his remarks.
Thank you so much, and thank you, commissioners and Ted Wheeler, or Mayor Wheeler, my bad. My name is Taji Chestnut, and I'm here to give you my opinion on the state of Black America. I'm a first-generation son to a Kenyan immigrant. My father came to America seeking educational opportunity, and his journey was similar to millions others who since have then come to America for economic hope, political relief, and educational fortuity. Today, we are lost in a perilous and scary fight for a future built on multiculturalism and acceptance. The issue of Black migration isn't in the limelight. However, more close to home, there is something very pervasive in our own neighborhoods: gentrification. I moved to the city about 7 years ago. I lived in New Columbia and North Portland, where I discovered my identity as a Black man. Nowhere else would I have found such a salient culture, a culture that is on the brink of extinction. See, the state of Black America begins where I call home, Portland. As of now, I live in this gray area of Portland called Bethany, and I feel as if I'm looking into Portland through a window. This conversation and issue of housing has never been more apparent and is certainly at an apex. Despite the attempts of our administration to renounce refugees and immigration, Portland deserves to be a city of acceptance and inclusion. This practice begets nativism, and I do not want wealth to be the end of our culture and our people in Portland, and I feel as if my story and experience is not singular in that way. However, I have spoken to friends and peers who have claimed that gentrification is not a bad thing and we should see it as a tool. Such an arrogant statement perpetuates the experiences of those who can no longer call Portland their home. I sit here today and ask you to recognize those stories and see how Portland can play a role in uplifting those voices. Over the last summer, I had the opportunity to collaborate on the Black Male Achievement Summer Cohort for the second year in a row. This specific year, we focused on Black-owned businesses and Black space, and that work in specific forced me to further question the accountability of people in power. And this leads me to my question of, as city council members, what is your vision and what are your goals as how you can improve outcomes for Black communities in Portland? And what is your plan for reaching those goals? See, this question does not have to do with work already done, but rather the future initiatives in areas of our voice, community, housing, and safety, all values and principles that City of Portland holds. Thank you.
Thank you. How would you like us to go about responding to the question?
I believe the responses are going to be after the other stories were told. I just have to
okay.
step, so I want to make sure my
good.
question was asked.
We'll take our lead from you on how you
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taji. Taji has to leave, but as he said, we'll restate the questions, and we're really all of the youth are looking forward to your responses.
Great. Taji, thank you very much for
If
your
I could
your
just,
talk.
I'd like to recognize Taji as perhaps the youngest member of the very thrilling Office of Community and Civic Life Code Change Committee. I'm so impressed with all the youth who are involved with Multnomah Youth Commission. I have a special fondness for Taji, and just anyone willing to serve on that committee gets props from me. Thanks for being here, Taji.
Thank you. I'll have you all come sit up at the table. Share my with you. No, you're fine. You're fine. So our next presenter is Miriam.
The green button should be lit if you press that.
Yeah, thank you. Miriam Admasu is an Ethiopian American who was born and raised in Northeast Portland. She is currently pursuing her master's in social work at Portland State University while working at Central City Concern as the Associate Director of Equity and Inclusion. One thing that she would like people to know about her is equity and inclusion are not buzzwords or check marks in the work that she does. It's a plan of action that consists of breaking down barriers, feeling uncomfortable, and shifting the norm.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
afternoon.
When I think about Black migration, so many things come to me based on my personal experience and my vicarious experiences. When I narrowed it down to my immediate family's experience, I landed on the story of my parents coming to America. In 1984, my dad fled Ethiopia into Kenya as a refugee in hopes of a better life. 3 years later, my mom joined him in Kenya and they got married. Shortly after, my mom became pregnant with my brother and they found a family who would sponsor them in a small town called The Dalles, Oregon. In November 1988, my parents arrived in Oregon and my mom was 8 months pregnant at the time. When they arrived, they had no idea about the racist history of Oregon, but they did learn quickly. Not even a week after their arrival, they were met with the horrific news about the murder of Mulugeta Serrao. If you don't know, Mulugeta Serrao was a 28-year-old Ethiopian immigrant who was beaten to death by white supremacists off the corner of 31st and Pine, right here in Portland, Oregon. That wasn't the welcome they were expecting when they envisioned their American dream. When I take a step back from my family's migration experience, Black migration can mean many different things. Although my family came from Ethiopia on a plane, I'm not ignorant to Black migration that's been met with racism, exclusion, and trauma. Let's think about the transatlantic slave trade. I consider that to be called stealing and selling of human beings. But that was a large population of Africans who were enslaved and brought to America. Then there's the Great Migration, which is when more than 6 million Black people migrated from the South to the North, Midwest, and West between 1916 and 1970. Then, if we really zoom in, we'll see the history of Black migration to Oregon. This history, one filled with hate, exclusion, and systemic racism, continues to impact the Black community in Portland today. From the Golden West Hotel to Vanport to North and Northeast Portland. When I think about Black migration to Portland, I think about families that have been torn apart, people and businesses that have been displaced, and communities that have been traumatized. But then I think about it again, and that's not Black migration, that's gentrification. Black migration can mean many things to many different people, but when I try to wrap my head around it, the one thing that I do know is Black migration means resilience, dedication, and the strength to keep pushing forward. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Jamarty Brown is 23-year-old and from Northeast Portland and attended Jefferson High School. In December, he just graduated from Peru State University in Peru, Nebraska. He just recently signed an IFL, Indoor Football League contract to play football and is leaving tomorrow to be stationed in North Dakota and traveling around the country playing. He'll share his question with you. Do you want me to read it or? How are we going to improve our city's gentrification without moving the Black and brown out further?
Appreciate the introduction. Just like you said before, I'm a native of Northeast Portland. My family came out here from the South. My great-grandfather came from, on my dad's side, he came from World War II and moved out here from Mississippi. And then my other side, my mom's side of the family came from Little Rock in Oklahoma. I mean, that was earlier, in the earlier years, when Black migration was real big coming from down south. And also, dealing with, the grandparents and the great-grandparents dealing with World War II war, and I grew up all around this area. I attended Woodlawn Elementary as an elementary kid, went to SEI Academy, which is a self-enhancement nonprofit organization that some of you guys might be familiar with. And then I attended Jefferson High School, and it's been a journey seeing how the city has transferred, just the different ways and the different outlets, that different communities have made it. My grandma stay on Kirby and Emerson as we speak right now, and right across the street and 3 houses down, I think it would be $500,000 homes. But that wasn't the original homes. They've been torn down and, building new homes. And not saying that's a bad thing, but what happens when we have to move all the way out to 122nd and 148th, 162nd, and so forth and so on. And so one of the main things that I feel like, that being a part of the Black community is we have to understand that we have a voice, and we just as important as anybody else. And it's not just about the Black community, it's about all people as well. So I want to make that real clear. But just the whole migration piece, it's been a journey, and I think I've been very fortunate to have, older individuals that kind of educated me about how it was in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. I'm a 90s baby, born in 95. I was born right into, the gang epidemic, the whole epidemic of that era, and then the early 2000s. And so, it's just, I feel like we up here as the young folks in the community, we have a voice, and I think we all, we should be heard. And it's a, we just ready for change, and change in the right way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamarte. Our next speaker is Malia Forney. She's a 25-year-old sociology student at Portland Community College and currently works at Mount Scott Community Center. She is originally from Indiana, but moved to Portland about a year and a half ago from Atlanta, Georgia. At PCC's Southeast Campus, she is the club coordinator for the Black Student Union and an active member of the Black community of Portland.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you to the commissioners and the mayor today. Like she said, I am originally from Indiana. After going to Indiana University about 7 years ago, decided it wasn't the environment for me, and I moved to Washington, D.C., where I served as an AmeriCorps member doing 10 months of service. After my time in Washington, D.C., I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where I worked at the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Site. I learned all about the history of our people and the strength and the resilience in our communities. I learned for the first time about the richest Black neighborhood in the world, Auburn Avenue, and I was captivated. So moving here to Portland about a year and a half ago was almost a 180. And so I've learned a lot about this city, especially being a sociology major, going to PCC, which has fantastic teachers, fantastic educators, and being a part of the Black community of Portland, which strives to bring Black people to the resources that are here in this community. It's been very welcoming as a person who hasn't grown up here in this city, as a Black person who has not connected to the gentrification in the same way that people have been affected. It's been welcoming being here, but one of the things that I've learned is that a lot of Black people move because they say there aren't enough Black people here, and so therefore they move. And so the Black population here is decreasing every year. So one of the questions that I had was, what does the city plan to do to make Black people feel more comfortable in this city and enjoy being mentally strong here and economically strong as well?
Thank you, Malia. Our last presenter is Soraya Sims. She's a junior at Reynolds High School and is classically trained cellist. She's a straight-A student, BSU president, Delta Gem, and a member of the National Honor Society. During the spring, Soraya plays softball for her school. She's also a dancer, actress, and appeared in both local and national print ads and commercials and has performed on stage since the age of 4. She's interested in everything from fashion to law and is looking to attend her dream college, Columbia University, after graduation. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. My name is Sierra Sims, as she stated. My story of my family's journey to Oregon starts with my great-great-grandmother, Dorothy, who moved from Texas to come and work on the shipyards in Vanport. They were later moved into Red Line communities after the flood, and my family has been in Portland ever since. My grandma had my mother, who was born and raised in Portland, and my mother had me, who was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. We were then moved out into the eastern community, where I have basically grown up since I was a little girl. And most of my story starts with education, because that's all I've known since I've been in school since preschool. So education in the eastern community is very difficult for African Americans, especially those who have been moved out because of causes of gentrification. So we often don't have the same resources as other peoples have, and educators aren't prepared to deal with African Americans who move out that way. What I have a question about is what are you doing now to make resources and politics more accessible to African Americans youths in today?
Good.
Thank you, everyone. I want to introduce C.J. Robbins from the Office of Equity and Human Rights. He's going to facilitate a conversation between our young leaders and our mayor and the commissioners. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Excellent.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. Thank you for the opportunity to have our young folks speak on some topics that are close to their heart and important to our community. I coordinate Black male achievement efforts, as was shared, out of the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And the way I see it, we had 5 questions and we have 4 commissioners. So if we can have, and the mayor, three commissioners and the mayor.
He's
commissioner as well.
I'm still a commissioner.
Right?
Yeah. I just get more grief. It's just so
So what I would like to see is have each of our young folks reiterate their question, and those that didn't get a chance to ask their question, ask. And then I will leave it up to you all who responds to each question. I will remind the commissioners specifically, we only have about 15 minutes for response. So this is an invitation to a much longer conversation with these young leaders from our community. So, speaking as well to how they can engage in that broader conversation and join in ways like Taji is engaged with the Office of Civic and Community Life, right? So with that, we'll start here.
So my question today is, as we know, houseless youth of color and LGBTQIA plus youth are disproportionately affected by houselessness in Multnomah County. In addition to the services we provide that are specific to the LGBTQIA plus youth in the homeless youth continuum, what efforts are being made to provide culturally specific services for Black youth and youth of color in the homeless youth continuum?
I'll go ahead and take a first swing at that. First of all, just so we don't claim credit for other people's work, Multnomah County manages the homeless youth continuum, but obviously we're huge supporters of the overall homeless services network through the Joint Office of Homeless Services between the city and the county. Of course, there are significant culturally specific service providers. We recently had the Q Center give a really good presentation here at City Council. We've been very supportive of Outside In, New Avenues for Youth, Janus Youth Services, and others. our own strategies around housing focused specifically on the needs of the African-American community and lower-income communities. Cupid Alexander, who's sitting behind you, runs the housing services for the mayoral administration. We've been focusing on a couple of very specific projects, the North-Northeast Housing Strategy, which includes what's called a preference policy designed to ensure that families who were impacted by previous development and gentrification are at the top of the list in terms of being able to return to the community and take advantage of the affordable housing that's being created by the city of Portland. And that is largely a community-driven process. Similarly, since we're talking about gentrification, the Hill Block over near Legacy, that Hill Block was taken away from a historically black neighborhood under the guise of urban renewal with the expectation that it would be developed. The black families' homes were demolished and no development ever took place. So that's been a very, very sore spot for the black community here in the city of Portland for a long time. We have a community-driven process to work with the city and Legacy to talk about the redevelopment, how that redevelopment is actually going to take place. So it is a community-centric effort to actually engage. So from my perspective, those are some of the tangible ways that we're getting results.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just really quickly, Mayor, what are some ways that Miriam could join in some of those efforts that you mentioned or have her voice reflected?
We'd love to have her voice reflected, and the best advice I can give you, Miriam, before you leave, make sure you connect with Cupid sitting right behind you, and we'll get you plugged in. We'd love to have your perspective on it. Thank you.
Before you go on, I just want to call dibs on Ms. Sims' question. I'm calling dibs on Ms. Sims' question.
Dibs on that question.
I didn't know we could do that.
I didn't know we could do that.
CJ didn't say we got
have
it. We
it.
could do that.
So with that, to you, Jamonte.
Just like I stated before, well, just how we all stated before about the gentrification. So before I say my question, one of the big things that I feel like was one of the big things in gentrification was when a lot of black families are offered a lot of money for their home, they sell it for other reasons, financial problems. You may have children that have needs, going to college, stuff like that. So if somebody knocks on your door and offer you $100,000, $200,000 for your house, and your money in cash or whatever, whatever the money part is, and in your mind, you're thinking about your family. What can this money do for me and my family in the long run? Now, whatever they do with that money is up to them, but that's a lot of money to deal with when you're coming from nothing. So I just want to kind of make that very clear as far as when you get offered a lot of money for your home and you need the money, especially if you come from a big family, then the money is kind of like the motivation. Like, okay, we'll move out wherever we got to go because this money is going to help us. But, back to the gentrification part, my question was, how can we improve the gentrification without moving to black and brown? I know you just, kind of stated a little bit about that. But since gentrification already kind of happened and people already been in their communities out in Southeast Portland or wherever for probably quite some time now, how do we keep improving that in a way where, not in the sense of moving back to the north and northeast, but how can we still just improve that without moving the people that's currently still in the north and northeast out?
Jamonte, I want to try to answer your question. And first, let me just say congratulations on being a black young man from inner Northeast who is gone to college and is on your way. You had a good support system because none of us do it without a very good support system. So congratulate you for what you've done and what you will do for your community. In regard to your question, you spoke truly from your heart when you talked about somebody knocking on your door, offering you $100,000 or $200,000 for your home. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of black families, right? Because if you bought the home 30 years ago, you paid $25,000 or $35,000 for it, this looks like a windfall, right? Until you go and try to buy something with that $100,000 or $200,000 that they offered you, right? And what you find is you can't buy anything for the little bit of money that they offered, right? I would love to see the city of Portland develop a financial literacy program where we could help homeowners understand the value of the homes that they have so that they're not falling prey to predatory scheme artists who want to come and just like offer you pennies on a dollar and then turn around and put a little paint on it and sell it for 4 times as much, right? That happens over and over and over again, especially in communities with limited financial literacy. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of black and brown people no longer live in inner Northeast, so for those who want to come back, more power to them. But the other ones who now live in East Portland and are making home in East Portland and in Gresham and all the other places that they're making their home, we have an obligation to make sure they can build community where they are. We should not be trying to tell people they have to go back to something that just, quite frankly, doesn't exist anymore, right? So having people come back to something that's just a dream of what used to be is not what we want to do, right? We have to build towards the future. And so in my mind, that means let's stake a claim in East Portland, right? I think Gateway is a great opportunity for us to stake a claim and say, okay, we're going to have a black neighborhood here. Let's make this happen, right? But we need young people to show up, like not just on Black History Month, but actually show up on a regular basis, making sure that your voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I also wanted to ask the same question, and I'll just reiterate it. It will go for all of the commissioners. How can Jamarte join in some of the efforts that you mentioned there as a young leader from our community?
Well, I can tell you that in my office, Matt McNally is my, they make me call him a community coordinator or outreach something or other, whatever the city term is for that, right? But he's an organizer, right? And so if you've got some young people that want to actually work together and vision what it looks like in East Portland today, connect with my office, ask for Matt, he'll help you make that happen. And quite frankly, anything I'm involved in, young people are involved in. So it's like, it's not an extra thing. It's just how we roll.
Thank you. So to Malia for your question, please.
Thank you. So my question has kind of been answered a little bit, but I kind of want to open it up a little bit more. So as someone, like I said, who hasn't been here very long, and when you do a Google search of Portland, the first thing that comes up is whitest city in America. And a lot of Portlanders know that, and they seem kind of ashamed of it. And so I often ask people, so what do you think we should do to make people want to be in Portland? Because the black population is slowly decreasing every single year. And I did a little bit of research and found out in 2015, I think that was the earliest that I could find, was the Diversity and Civic Leadership Program. And I'm not sure if it's still a part of the city's initiatives, but essentially it had this idea to make black people feel more comfortable here, but that program is no longer there. So does the city have any initiatives to increase that program, continue it, or start something new?
Are you talking about the DCLs?
Yeah, the DCL
okay.
program. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna take a stab at this because this is my question. So yes, we still have that program actually, DCLs. It's under the office formerly known as Office of Neighborhood Involvement. It's now called the Office of Community and Civic Engagement. It was originally created to support Portland's neighborhood association system, and that system tends to be dominated by older, more affluent white homeowners. And for the I don't know how many several years, I've only been here 2 years, ONI really took on a broader and broader scope. And so the DCLs were part of that in recognition, especially during a time of mass displacement of communities of color, that community in Portland is no longer geographically based, and that we needed to better serve culturally specific groups. So that is where the DCL program came from, and it is resources and training for different communities of color through our community partners for advocacy and getting into leadership roles. Am I forgetting part of your question? You asked about DCLs, but I thought it was a gentrification.
Yeah, I just was wondering how much support the city is giving that program and if they plan on like expanding that.
Oh, well, thank you for raising that issue. That's actually my bureau. We can always use more financial resources. I will say that I believe that Portland is a progressive city that doesn't know how to achieve its progressive ideals, and especially in the realm of past harm done to communities of color through racist public policy. And I do believe, although it's fair to criticize equity as a buzzword and something that people are paying lip service to, that we are making meaningful progress toward remedies. I don't think that we can ever make up for what happened, but we can start where we are now. And I mean, gentrification is a great example. Gentrification is not a natural, unstoppable phenomenon. We got to where we are today by design, and we need to get out of where we are today by design. And that means reversing harmful policies and creating remedies. So I'm really committed to tenant protections. That's a big focus of my office, and trying to keep people in their housing that they're in to stem that tide of gentrification and displacement. I've also asked the office, I always forget what OMF stands for.
Management Finance.
Office of Management and Finance, to look at the anti-displacement measures that we adopted in our Comp 2035 comp plan, because it's all well and good to say that we've adopted these anti-displacement measures, but unless someone's holding us accountable for them, they may not happen. And so OMF is creating a bureau-wide or a multi-bureau approach to making sure that the bureaus with the most impact, housing, transportation, are sticking to those commitments. I could go on, but I'm pretty sure we're about to run out of time, so I'm going to stop. But I welcome you to talk to my staff. If you're interested in anything that Civic Life is doing, we can get you connected there. There are lots of opportunities for people to get involved on a volunteer basis. There's also intern opportunities, but it's also great to have lots of pressure from advocates on the outside. Not everyone has to get involved on this side.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, to Sayara, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Saira.
Sayara, thank you.
Okay, so we all spoke a little bit about gentrification, but with that being said, what resources are you providing for African American youth and African Americans in general to those that have already been pushed out towards the east because of gentrification?
And your question also asked about the
Yes.
engagement in politics, right? So that was why I dived in and reserved the opportunity to respond to that, because we're just starting the Open and Accountable Elections Program, which is a matching fund for citywide campaigns. Thank you. And that means that that future candidates for mayor, city council, auditor won't be dependent on big money donors, because a small donation is going to be matched by city dollars. So a $50 donation will get $300 added by the city to make it a $50 donation turn into $350. And that will mean that there'll be more candidates campaigning in East Portland, asking people to house parties to give their opinions and to give their $10, $50, whatever. And remember, you can get a $50 tax credit. So essentially, you're just lending the money until you get your tax refund from the state. So, and that means that there'll be much more opportunity for people to run and be successful. Commissioner Hardesty just got elected from East Portland. So Commissioner Hardesty, Commissioner Udaley, and I all ran small money donation campaigns. We're going to be involved in doing some of the trainings which are coming up. And I would say, anticipating CJ's question, how young people can get involved if you're not yet old enough to be a candidate. One of the best ways to prepare to be a candidate is to volunteer on a campaign. And so we're going to be having trainings about how to use this program. It's a program where there are a number of rules about what you're allowed to accept in donations, who you can get them from, and how you can spend the money. So it's not quite as simple as I outlined it earlier, but it is something that an intelligent high school student could certainly help a candidate win. And then also I want you to know about, there's a program called New Leadership Oregon at Portland State University. You don't have to go to Portland State University to go to it. And it's a summer program that prepares particularly young women of color to be candidates and leaders in our community. And so I encourage you to look into whether that might be available. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to get more information about the Open and Accountable Elections Program, just contact Yesenia Carrillo in my staff, who is my constituent services specialist. She'd be happy to tell you more about it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you all. We have one more question, which was Taji's, which he read, but I will restate. It's the bonus round. I will let you all, again, I'll let you all mediate how you choose. Taji's question is, as city council members, what is your vision and what are your goals as to how you can improve outcomes for Black communities in Portland? And what is your plan for reaching these goals? This question does not have to do with work already done, but rather the future initiatives in areas of our voice, community, housing, and safety, all values that this city boasts quite proudly.
I've got one quick answer, in that we just hired Dr. Markeisha Smith to lead the Office of Equity and Human Rights. She's an African-American who's been in Oregon since 2011. She's got a lot of experience in education and in equity work. And so part of really what we need to do is to appoint people to the highest positions who can guide the work, help the council understand what we need to do. And so that's just one example of something that CJ will be working with Dr. Smith, because it's the Office of Equity and Human Rights.
I will simply add that it took 147 years to get an African-American woman to sit in the seat that I'm sitting in.
Well, it's because there is somebody there now, not that it took 147 years to do so. I always think it's interesting when people applaud that, because it's actually appalling that it took so long.
And that is absolutely my point. I mean, when I've been out in public and people applaud being the first African-American woman to sit on the city council, I remind them that is not something to celebrate. We should be ashamed, because it's not that I'm more talented than any other African-American woman who's ever come in front of the city before me. It's not that I had big friends with big money that allowed me to be able to run and serve in public office. It is that nobody works harder than I do. No one, right? And so I say that, and I agree absolutely with Commissioner Fritz. I say that to remind you is that nobody's going to give us the opportunities that we deserve. We just have to take them, right? That's my response. Take it.
I have a longer response, but I always talk too much anyway. It's a very provocative question. It sort of ties together, the whole panel's question. I was trying to figure out, how do I summarize a 4-hour speech? First of all, you have to speak to the history. You have to own the history. And until we talk about the history collectively, and I mean the broader community, the majority community, until we own that history, it's very hard for us to really work together to achieve common goals. And I believe this council has worked very, very hard to acknowledge and to own the history. And I'll just give two quick examples. The first State of the City speech I gave was largely on this history of African Americans in our community. And I thought, at least for the majority community, it started to open up a conversation that frankly should have been had years and years prior, but for reasons hadn't. Number two, a single sentence in the job application for Chief of Police of the Portland Police Bureau, which simply stated the obvious in many people's minds, in my mind, that the police chief would need to have an understanding of the history of race in this community and understand how that history bleeds over into today. And those of you who are here remember it created a firestorm. I mean, it was almost ridiculous. What some people saw as controversial, others, including myself, saw as essential. So we have to keep calling out the history. The second is leadership, as both Commissioner Fritz and Commissioner Hardesty just identified. We will hire the best leaders. And the best leaders at the City of Portland currently include many people from the Black community. Chief Outlaw, the first African-American woman to serve on the Portland Police Bureau, in my estimation, is doing a fantastic job in a really, really difficult job and a difficult environment. Maurice Henderson, who is my first Chief of Staff, again, one of these sort of outrageous, ridiculous, I can't believe it's so situations where he was the first Black man to serve as a Chief of Staff to a mayor in the city of Portland in its entire history. Cyrilda Summers McGee, who heads up all of the HR operations for the city of Portland, and many, many others. Inclusion. I actually love the fact that everyone on this city council works really, really hard to include people, not only people of color generally or underserved communities generally, but with a lot of interest focused on the youth voice. The last question asked about housing, and it asked about safety, it had asked about economic prosperity. One of the most important community engagement committees we have right now is around police reform and public safety, and we deliberately put two positions on that board. They are full voting positions for two young people. We currently have two young folks serving in those positions. Those positions will rotate. If the people have an interest in that, we're certainly interested. Two quick other just sort of last wrap-up points. One of the ways you avoid this question of gentrification is by being proactive. And while there are things we are doing in East Portland to be proactive against gentrification, particularly on the housing front, the Southwest Corridor is the first large public transportation project that will come before this city council, where we as a council have already said through resolution, we will not invest in the transportation infrastructure unless there is an intentional anti-displacement job opportunity and housing strategy to keep the lower income people who are there today there permanently. And that's, I think, been largely well received. Finally, what ties this all together for me, how do you keep people of color in Portland? You keep them here through shared economic prosperity. They feel that they have worked hard and they have been justly compensated for the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears that they've put into this community. And that's why we've been pushing programs like the Portland Means Progress program, where we are getting young people, particularly from historically underserved communities, into jobs. We are focusing on our business community and encouraging them to work with women and minority entrepreneurs to help them grow their business operations. And last but not least, we're getting them to commit to bring really younger kids in as well-paid interns to get them exposed to some of the opportunities that they could have in the community, and then connect them to the job training or to the educational opportunities they need in order to be successful in those careers if they're inspired so to do. So there's a lot of work that this council has ahead of us in addition to the work that we've already been undertaking.
So So I prefer to let the mayor wrap up, but I don't want to not participate in this conversation. I'll just throw 4 things out there really quickly that I'm interested in and involved in. One is how we spend our public dollars. Our utilization rates of women and minority contractors for public projects have been abysmal. They are slightly better. It needs a lot of work. So that's an area that I'm committed to and something meaningful through PBOT, because we spend a lot of money and we hire a lot of contractors. 2 is PCEF, the Portland Clean Energy Fund, presents us with an incredible opportunity I hate it when I say the same word 2 times in a row, creates a huge potential for increasing economic opportunity in communities of color. The Office of Civic Life and Prosper Portland both have initiatives specifically targeting entrepreneurs of color that I will continue to champion. And the final one, the one I'm most excited about telling you about today, is the Rose Quarter I-5 plan. Public comment is about to open up through ODOT. I would love for massive participation in that. The focus has been on an improvement to the highway, but what I really want the community to focus on is what we can do on those surface streets, and what we can do is begin to stitch back together, stitch Lower Albina back into the broader community, and there's just an incredible opportunity there, and your voices should be at the forefront of that conversation.
Thank you all. I'd like everyone, but especially our commissioners, to join me in thanking the panel of young folks who have taken time out to be here.
Back again to close us out. Thank you so much, Mayor and Commissioners, for having us here today. This group of young people is awesome and amazing. We had a mission to present you with some representative voices of Black youth under 25 and under, to tell their stories. So thank you for listening, and thank you for engaging with them on their comments. As we close out, I want to give a couple comments before we kick it back to the Mayor and Commissioner Hardesty to read the proclamation. I want to thank the community partners who identified and nominated these young people to speak to us. So Self-Enhancement, Inc., Central City Concern, Black Community of Portland, Black Male Achievement, and World Center Stage. They represent the type of partnerships that we want to strengthen across our city. So thank you so much for your support of our effort today. This is really, for me, a full circle moment, because as I was a young leader here in Portland organizing, I actually was introduced to Commissioner Hardesty through the NAACP when I was active with the NAACP Youth Council, and then established the chapter at Portland State University. So awesome and amazing that I can now open this space and opportunity for other young voices to come forward, but also that I get to do it in the presence of someone that did it for me. Thank you so much. And on that note, CAN definitely wants to honor and celebrate the fact that we do have our first African-American commissioner woman sitting on this council. So we want to be a resource to you and all of you in support of the Black employees of the city of Portland, but also just in support of your tenure. So please let us know how we can be of service. I want to quickly just shout out all of the events that we have going on for Black History Month. We're working in concert with a number of organizations in the community, and also a number of bureaus across the city. The first set of events the next set of events that we have going on is this Friday, February 1st. From 12 to 1 p.m., we'll be hosting a Bike Town bike ride, launching from here at City Hall. We'll be traveling through downtown, going to Chinatown to support Dead Stock Coffee, which is a African-American owned coffee shop in Chinatown. So we'll be riding there and back. And then later that afternoon, we'll be partnering with Nike on an event. They're a partner with our Bike Town program, and they'll be unveiling their Black History Month design of their bikes. And so you'll see those floating around the city, but Friday will be the first opportunity to see them. We, on February 18th, on President's Day, are working with World Stage Theater to host a professional development event. So that's Monday, February 18th. They'll have an all-day event, and we'll have some CAN-specific events that evening for professional networking. On February 24th, Sunday, February 24th, we're partnering with the Parks, the teen program at Montevilla Community Center. We're hosting a Black Family Festival and City Resource Fair. So we have positioned many city bureaus to be there tabling, to be offering information about the services and programs that they have to offer. We'll also be hosting workshops with the Bureau of Human Resources and Procurement about how to get jobs at the city and how to do business with the city. And then lastly, on February 26th, every year we try to highlight one of our partner organizations. So we'll be going to Self-Enhancement, Inc. That morning to hear about how they are transitioning as an organization into an African American cultural center. So it's an opportunity for city staff and other community members to join us to learn more about how we can partner with that organization. So that is it from us. After this, we invite all of the community members present to join us downstairs. We'll have a reception at City Hall that is generously supported by the mayor and Commissioner Hardesty. We'll have information about all of our upcoming events and some information about CAN and signing up for our email list. We also have an active Facebook page where everyone can RSVP for these events. So with that, I will turn it back over to the mayor, and I do want to flag that for our youth speakers, we are going to have a framed copy of the proclamation. So we'll get signatures from all the commissioners for this, and we will get it to our folks. And our thanks for joining us today, and so you can remember your time here.
So I'm going to say this now because I'll forget to say it otherwise. At the end of the reading of the proclamation, could we get a photograph up front here, Irene, with you and with our youth? That would be a lot of fun if we could do that. So in honoring Black History Month, it's traditional that we read a proclamation on the part of the city of Portland. And of course, as has been noted, this is an especially historic time as our city has elected our first African-American city commissioner, Commissioner Hardesty.
Woman.
What did I say?
You said first African-American.
Oh, I'm sorry, first African-American woman. That is correct. No disrespect meant to Commissioner Jordan. He was also an amazing and important leader here in our city. And Mr. Bogle, Commissioner Bogle. Anybody else want to add anything else before I continue? All these important people, but the important thing is Commissioner Hardesty's right here now. So this is the progress, the kind of progress that must be noted and must be celebrated. And as such, it's my honor to have Commissioner Hardesty introduce and read the city's Black History Month proclamation on behalf of the Portland City Council. Commissioner Hardesty, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It is my pleasure. Whereas the City of Portland takes pride in joining Americans throughout the country in recognizing February 2019 as Black History Month. And whereas Black History Month pays tribute to the contributions that African Americans have made to American history and their struggles for freedom and equality, and deepens our understanding of our shared history. And whereas the theme of 2019, Black Migration, honors those of African descent who move to new destinations and new social realities. While inclusive of earlier centuries, this theme emphasizes the 20th century through present day. And whereas many African American families migrated to Portland and the greater Pacific Northwest to seek employment, escape violence, and pursue the American dream, and whereas these individuals and families, their children, and those who have followed them are important members of the Portland community and have helped shape it into the more diverse and inclusive community we know today. And whereas people of African birth and African descent continue to migrate to Portland and the greater Pacific Northwest, and whereas our diverse cultures enriches and broadens the American experience, of which Black heritage is an inseparable part as it weaves throughout our country's history, profoundly influencing every aspect of our lives. And whereas we commend the many achievements, successes, and contributions of African Americans in all fields of endeavor. And whereas inequality and injustice still linger in our cities, states, and country, and it is the responsibility of citizens to advance the American notion of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. Now, therefore, the Portland City Council of the City of Portland, Oregon, the City of Roses, do hereby proclaim February 1 through the 28th, 2019, to be Black History Month in Portland, and encourage all residents to observe this month. Signed by the mayor.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And if we could just gather here for a photograph. And Carla, we are adjourned.